Hello everyone, my name is Specimen. I've got a deck guide for you today using Villain Tretamurth, Borkh 3 Jackdaws, the Golden Dragon that got us really comfortably to Pro Rank and has got us a brilliant faction MMR skill with Northern Realms. It's not Uprising, it's a lot of fun, and I'm going to introduce to you some of the different cards in the deck, maybe talk about some of the different tech options you might want to use depending on what rank you're at, and also if you do have any questions about the deck, feel free to ask in the comments. But you might get a quick reply on my Twitch channel where I'm streaming every single day at the moment. We've got a lovely little community going on over there as well. So even if I can't help you out, I'm sure my chat will be more than happy to help because they are some pretty nice people over there. The deck focuses around the Baron and Revenant, which has an order of damaging an enemy unit by 1. Then if you kill a unit, so in other words, if my opponent's got a 1 strength unit, I damage it by 1, it's going to spawn another one. And you can rinse and repeat until you have a full row full of Revenants. We all know about the power of Draug, but this deck does not use Draug, but we can play these in a variety of ways. The idea being we play these so many times that our opponent's just not going to have the answers for them in round 1, round 2, round 3, so we're going to get a lot of points off of them, and it just means our opponents sort of got to decide, oh, do I use this removal now or do I save it for later, which gives us some comfortable rounds. Forbidden Magic damages an enemy unit by 2, and if you kill a unit, it spawns a Revenant, so it's basically a Revenant with 2 points of damage, so even better somehow. Unfortunately, it's a random allied row, and obviously it's slightly more risky than the standard Revenant because you have to have a 2 strength unit on your opponent's side of the board for this to go off. So the deck is essentially built around us lowering our opponent's units to 2 strength and 1 strength and leaving those tool units for cards like Borkh 3 Jackdaws to deal with. Now, we do have a few other ways of playing our Revenants. One way is reinforcements. I'm sort of moving away from this card slightly at the moment, but I'll get onto that in a bit. It's just because I'm getting greedy of my gold list, but this is a definite option for you. Definitely play around with the deck and mess around and see if there's some things you want to change yourself. We are using Necromancy, however, and I would recommend using this, even though it's a bit more expensive. We can get a Revenant from the graveyard, so let's say we're playing against someone that's just removing all our cards. Well, we can just pull another we can just use our Necromancy to pull another Revenant out as and when we need it. That could be round 1, that could be round 3, who knows, okay? Whereas with reinforcements, if they're just removing all your engines, you're going to have nothing to reinforcements and you can be left with a dead card at times. We also have, as another way of playing Revenants, we have the lovely Queen Adda and Triss Telekinesis. Now, Triss Telekinesis is a fantastic card that's playing Forbidden Magic, but it also has the option to play a Boiling Oil, which is really nice. It's just that little bit of thunder if you need that instant removal. So that's the main ways we have of playing Revenants. Like I say, you could also use reinforcements. Absolutely, this is a brilliant card in this list, and I think actually I was using this card for the strong majority of the time. I've just started getting a little bit greedy in the gold list, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Before we do get on to the big bad boy golds, I do want to talk about a couple of cards down here in particular, especially this man Ronvid. So if you play in round 1, he plays for 6 tempo, so 6 strength at 6 provisions, but then he's going to come back in round 2 and round 3 whenever you play a soldier. Now he only comes in at 1 strength, which doesn't seem that good. However, our Baron and Revenants damage a unit by 1, not an enemy unit, so you can kill Ronvid with your own Revenant, another Revenant's going to spawn out, so you get 3 extra points essentially, and then Ronvid is going to come back whenever you play a soldier. So at the start of my turn, if I've got a Revenant and Ronvid down on the board, I kill Ronvid with my Revenant, and then I play another soldier, like another Revenant for instance, and Ronvid's going to come straight back out as if he was never even gone. We've also got Vincent, and this sets the power of a non-boosted enemy to 1, which of course is perfect for our Revenants, for our Forbidden Magics. Ronvid though is really the card that just allows this deck to work so consistently because we're not relying on having low strength enemy units to get our engines going. We can just do it with Ronvid. So even if our enemy's just playing really tall units or no units at all, we can still get value off our Revenants by killing Ronvid as long as you have him down before round 3. That's the important thing, okay? Now one way we have of doing that is using Royal Decree. Ronvid's a pretty good option from Royal Decree. And unfortunately, we could also use Marching Orders, which plays the lowest unit from your deck, which would be perfect. But we do use Philippa Earhart in at 12 provisions, sorry. Now, Philippa is a fantastic card, brilliant at dealing with multiple engines, which plays into this deck's control aspect. She also has the added bonus of being a 1 strength unit, so you can kill her with your Revenants. So this card's just absolutely incredible in this list, especially if you're playing against like a Mystic Echo deck that's going to play a few Harmony units down at once. Let's say your opponent's got 2 engines, Philippa can just flip between them and destroy them all. It's really, really nice. Of course, quite a bit of RNG involved in this card, so ideally you want to use Philippa when your opponent's got 2 different engines down on the board, when you know that the damage is going to be split between them perfectly. We also have Falibor, wherever he might be, which is a very similar card to Philippa. Obviously, he's got a 7 strength card, which means you're getting a little bit more tempo off of him, but it's really easy to set up the death blow of maximizing this deployability. So you damage by 3, 2, and then 1, and hopefully with that last 1 tick you're going to set up a Forbidden Magic or a Revenant. You've also got the option, if your opponent's got a 4 strength unit, of Faliboring and spawning another Revenant, which is definitely not a bad option. Now, the card that's similar to Villain Tretamurth here is the Mr. Bloody Baron. So we've got Baron and Villain Tretamurth for dealing with those tool units on our opponent's side of the board. Having both of these cards just allows us not to be worried about using either of them round 1, because you might use them in round 1 and think, oh, how am I going to deal with that Glusty in round 3? How am I going to deal with that Saul in round 3? But when you've got 2 ways of dealing with those tool units, it does help a lot. So Baron, obviously, worst case scenario, you put him in the back row for 7 points. Villain Tretamurth is a bit more risky. However, this card is so nice because it gives you that extra bit of reach in round 1 if you need it. Let's say my opponent goes first and he's got a Saul in at 16 points, which, you know, let's be honest, that does happen. I know that I've got 22 points of reach, because 6 from Villain Tretamurth and the 16 points from Saul. I know I've got 22 points of reach at all times, which means I can stay in round 1 a little bit longer, all the while my Revenants are hopefully just getting me a little bit closer to a score, forcing some good cards out of him, and then he might pass thinking, yeah, he can't do it, and then bang, you put Villain Tretamurth down on the board after he passes, and by the time it's back to your turn, Villain Tretamurth's timer is down to 1, you pass, it goes off, and jobs are good and you win the round, which is always really, really nice. So it just gives you that extra bit of reach, and having both Villain and Baron in the deck means you're not feeling worried about using that tool removal round 1, because you're going to have a little bit more in round 3. So that's the main gold power of the deck. However, the bronze cards in this list are actually incredibly good as well. The Mauler is a nice proactive play that damages an enemy unit by 2. If your opponent removes this, well, guess what? They're probably not going to have much removal later on for your Revenant. So this card normally sticks. Really nice if your opponent plays, for instance, a 4 strength unit. You can just hit it with a Mauler and then Forbidden Magic it, which kills it while also gets an engine. If your opponent plays a 6 strength engine, you could use a Boiling Oil on it, etc, etc. It's really nice also just leaving it down on the board as a threatening play. So if your opponent was to play a 7 strength unit or an 8 strength unit, you might have a Mauler or something like a Ballista down on the board. Now, this Ballista is absolutely incredible in this deck because you've got a deploy ability of damaging an enemy unit by 1, and then you've also got the order of 2 before. So it's very similar to the Mauler, except it's 1 point less in strength, but you have 1 point extra in damage. Now, the 1 point extra in damage is absolutely huge because this instant deploy, let's say your opponent's got a 2 strength unit, you can hit the Ballista down, and then if you've already got a Revenant on the board, not only are you getting an order of 2 damage next turn, but you can also get another Revenant going. So this card's absolutely fantastic. Also, the ability to damage an enemy unit by 1 is actually quite rare. A lot of damage in Gwent is in even numbers, is in 2s, but having a 1 ping is super good because you can just try and manipulate your opponent's side of the board to maximize your efficiency of your damage. Now, what I mean by that is rather than killing a 1 strength unit with a Forbidden Magic, normally you can kill a 2 strength unit, which means you're using all your points of damage that are available to you. Now, the card that's similar to the Ballista that allows us to do that is the Archer. Now, this card is fantastic if left unanswered. It is very easy for your opponent to deal with a lot of the time. Movement is a big downside on this card, as it is with the Mauler, but the 2 armor, if this goes, then it's not getting any more charges, but your opponent's then sinking 2 points into the armor at least, right? And also, it's got a Zeal, so you can ping straight away, which hopefully can line something up for your Revenants or even next turn for your Forbidden Magic. So really, really nice card in the Archer and the Ballista. So that's the bulk of the deck, but there are a few other tech options you might want to include. I think the one that stands out to me most of all, that has been in all my decks, but I'm maybe moving away from it, I'm undecided at the moment, is the Carry Ballista. It's very, very similar to the Mauler, and I've been using 2 of these in most of my decks. I've started to move away from it slightly, but I'm still not 100% sure if that's a good idea. Like I said, I've just been getting a little bit more greedy in my gold list. So if you want to see my updated list, go in the description. If you want to ask me a specific question, let's say, oh, Specimen, I'm ranked 13, which sort of cards do you think I should include? I can just tell you. The ones I've included at the start, I would include in pretty much all of them, but there's some cards that you maybe, for instance, if you're in pro rank, you might want to include, but you might not need to include if you're at rank 20. Now, one of those is the Bomb Heaver that I've been using a lot. This is just a really nice way of dealing with your opponent's scenarios that you see a lot. And luckily, because we play Adda, because we've got Fallible and Philippa, even if our opponent plays a defender, we've got lots of ways of dealing with the defender, so then we can get maximum value off the Bomb Heaver, which is pretty nice. Another good tech option is the Pella that I have been using recently. I'm not in love with having this card either. I think we just could do with, in Northern Realms, having Kudu Dak being slightly better. Because the Pella can purify your own units, it can sort of deal with poison slightly, it can deal with locks, but the biggest use of this is on your opponent's defender, and it allows you to keep your Vicious Slash, your Adda Elite ability, for another day. So if you can get rid of the defender, then if they play a scenario behind it, you can Bomb Heaver it straight away for maximum value. So the Pella's a kind of decent little option here. Like I say, I just think Northern Realms could do with Kudu Dak being able to purify one of your own units or one of your opponent's units. It's one of the worst purifier cards in the game, and Grimace in Skellige is a much better version of him. So I think unfortunately you have to stick with the Pella. And another tech option that you might want to include is just a simple Thunder instead of double boiling, or you might want to go double Thunder. Now the reason for that is that Adda bleeds units and boiling ore purifies units. So you can have a card bleeding and then boiling ore the card next to it, and then suddenly the bleeding's gone. So your opponent could actually play an engine if they're smart next to your bleeding cards. So I actually think Alzor's Thunder's a little bit better. So let's say, for instance, I've got a card that's got 4 bleeding on it. My opponent could then play a 5 strength engine next to that bleed, because I think, well, they could boiling all it, but it's going to get rid of the bleed. So unfortunately we seem to have a bit of anti-synergy between the main control special card in Northern Realms, which is boiling ore, and the main control leader. So that's a bit unfortunate, so I think stick with Thunders would be my suggestion. Like I say, Reinforcements is a great option. Sabrina could be a real nice option. Sheila in at 7 provisions is a fantastic option. This card, War Chariot's pretty good too. Definitely would recommend giving this card a spin, because it's a nice way of dealing with defenders. Margarita and Dora Grey are also pretty good options in at 7 for that control aspect. However, the card I'm going to talk about that I think you should definitely consider, because I was actually using it when I maximised my MMR of this list, is Kahori Yeetwave, because this banishes a unit or artifact. So let's say my opponent's got a really tall unit in at in at 11 strength, I could Heatwave it. Let's say they play a scenario, I can Heatwave it. Now, I think I really do like having Villain Tretamurth and Baron. I actually kicked Villain Tretamurth for a while, but I think what you could potentially do is you could argue you could kick Adda for this Heatwave. Now, what that would mean is that frees up a lot of spots in your bronzes, because you don't probably want to run Bomb Heaver anymore, and you also probably don't want to run Pella. Now that frees up quite a lot of provisions in here, so you could maybe use a Reinforcements, and then maybe you could use an extra Carabalista or an extra Thunder or something like that, because these are some fantastic cards, and I would say this is your ideal bronzes. The only problem with using the Yeet Wave instead of a Bomb Heaver is that this card is 5 provisions more, and on a scenario it's worth 4 points less. And you also cannot use it through Raw Decree. So let's say my opponent plays a scenario round 1, and I've got Raw Decree in my hand. Well, if I had a Bomb Heaver, I could call my Bomb Heaver in to deal with it, but you can't call it in with Heatwave. So it's sort of a catch-22. I guess you could even argue you could still use Heatwave and a Bomb Heaver. I suppose that wouldn't be the worst idea, but then you're just going to miss out on Queen Adda. I'd say if you're at lower ranks, definitely stick with Adda. The only reason I'm sort of maybe considering ditching her is the fact that I'm playing against so much Nilfgaard, which has Swears, which Swears really messes this card up. Like against Nilfgaard, I find myself wanting to mulligan this. And similarly, against the old Syndicate, they've got that lovely card Philippa, which you're basically just giving your opponent an engine with a shield, which, let's be honest, isn't a great idea. So I'm going to experiment on stream in the next few days, ditching Queen Adda in favour of this Yeet Wave. And to be honest, I might even still keep the Bomb Heaver in there, just in case, right? Now, the Yeet Wave then could be used to deal with defenders, and I could use the Bomb Heaver to deal with the scenarios, because it does kind of feel bad sinking a Heat Wave into a scenario when you could use a card that's 5 provisions cheaper for 4 more points, right? So maybe we could even mess around with this. Maybe we could ditch a Ballista. I think this list looks alright. I do quite like having Reinforcements in there as well. If we're ditching Adda, it's sort of fine. But anyway, this is the list. Like I say, there's a few different tech options. Mess around with it. I would recommend giving this a spin though. I'm gonna have some gameplay at the end of the day, at the end of the game. Like I say, definitely am still messing around with the deck list. So if there's a few differences, don't worry about it too much. I think it's always important to just mess around with your decks, see if there's any little things you want to change. While I'm actually on it, there is one other tech option that's definitely worth mentioning, which is the Siege Ladder. Not Nilfgaard. Monsters has a Necker. Up against Scoia'tael, you've got the movement with the Hawk in particular, and Skelliger uses Hammond as a bit of movement. So this Siege Ladder is a definite option, just to move some of your cards back into a different row. Let's say they move your Caraballista, you could move it back. Let's say they move your Redanian Archer. This card still keeps getting charges and charges, and then let's say it's got 6 charges on it. I could move it back with a Siege Ladder, and then suddenly I've got 6 damage I could do. So it's a pretty nice option. The other option as well is when your Forbidden Magic spawns a Revenant into the wrong row. If you've got a row full of Revenants, you can actually move that Revenant into an empty row and then start filling that row up as well. So definite option down there as well. But yeah, like I say, I'm streaming on Twitch every day, so please do come check me out on there and ask me any questions at all you've got about this list. It's an absolute blast. I hope you enjoy it. If you did enjoy the video and you like this style of video, please like and subscribe, because that shows me, to do more. But I'll let you watch the gameplay. Take care. Muchas gracias for watching. Yeah, I'll stop talking now. Adios. So I definitely could have Queen Adda this, but the problem with Queen Adda on a Revenant is the shield isn't actually that beneficial. So I decided not to go for it, and we're going to Queen Adda one of the archers, but I don't think I need to do it straight away either. I think we can maybe just hold on to her. So let's get an archer down. And this boy can boost himself, so we'll go for this little fella over here instead. It is working. Let's go. That's good. So we get the pass from him, which is pretty nice. I don't think we need to try and bleed Syndicate either. So we'll just play our worst provision card that still gets us the win, which luckily is this little fella here, the Mauler. So I'm pretty sure there's no point in trying and bleed Syndicate. I think we might take him in a long round as long as we get our combo cards. It's going to be interesting to see how Villain, Treamerth and Baron do. We should get some pretty nice value off both of them, to be fair. Yeatway's definitely good in this matchup as well. But we've got Philippa and Falibor for the defender. And then we just need to draw the Bomb Heaver now. Now we've got Ronvid, so obviously we're going to put Ronvid down here round 2. We also kind of need to be very wary of Philippa, so I actually don't feel brilliant about Queen Adda, which seems kind of weird. So I'm kind of tempted to try and just bait him out here by putting this down. Maybe we can get Philippa out of him if we just go a little bit deep in this round. I'm not going to go past 7 cards, I don't think. But I think Queen Adda is just going to be trouble for us, because unfortunately Philippa Arlhart does exist. And if Philippa Arlhart exists, you know it's in his deck. So we really need to try and get that out. Oh, look at that. I'm like a pro level player at this point. Wow. I'm kind of proud of that moment, huh? Like I say, no point trying to play around this card. It's always, if you're Northern Realms, this card is your worst nightmare pretty much, right? So don't try and play around it. Assume it's in his hand. Don't try and play around it round 1, except maybe try and play around it for round 3. So this sort of worked, right? It's a rare opportunity where we actually... I could have just led with Ronvid, but I was like, do you know what? Let's just give up our queen. He's got Philippa, so this card's kind of bad here because it just gives a shield to his card. Essentially, you're giving a shield for his engine because he's going to steal it. So we get Philippa out, which is huge. The only other bit of removal we're really worried about is 15 years in the sewers. And let's be honest, we know that's in his deck as well because that card's kind of overpowered as well, in my opinion. Okay, we've got the Bomb Heaver, the absolute legend. We don't want to draw into the Pella, so we probably still risk 1 mulligan. I think 2 Forbidden Magic's kind of risky. Actually, it's not really that risky. It's a little bit risky. The Necromancy is giving us an Archer if we want it, so I think we'll kick this Archer. And we'll keep this because this is the one problem with using cards like Pella. That you're not going to want to draw into. You don't want to risk that mulligan. But I'm feeling kind of fine, honestly, about having Pella and Bomb Heaver. It's not the end of the world, right? Now, this is where you'd love to just Forbidden Magic here, but his next card he's going to play, most likely, is the Passiflora, so we need to get rid of these straight away. So, we've got 2 options. It's Philippa if we want to be RNG, but it's going to be Fallible here. Now, unfortunately, the Forbidden Magics are really nice on these, but we're just going to have to go for the boy Fallible here. Now, slight consideration to go for the ship, as that does line up a 2 strength unit. But to be honest, you don't really want to kill the Flying Redenian that early, so I'm going to just hit the point down there. I'm going to get the boy Ronvid back as well, and this is where we're going to Bomb Heaver. Now this is where the Bomb Heaver's so much better, right, than, like, it's ridiculously better. It plays for 4 points more than the Yeet Wave would have, and it's 5 provisions left, so that's the argument for the Bomb Heaver over Yeet Wave, right? Unfortunately, of course, it still gets, his Path Flora still gets a lot of value, so Philippa's kind of good here. I guess we're taking Philippa, but it's not amazing. We basically just want to shut these down as soon as possible. In fact, to be fair, Boiling Oil on this in one turn is pretty good, right? Because it's going to get rid of the shield, so I've been moaning about Boiling Oil all day, but it does get rid of the shield. I've also got Baron and Villain Tretamurth, so that's probably going to be Sea Jackal and Saul are our main targets for that. I think it's within our interest just to get a Revenant down here. Oh, because he's got... Oh, I've misplayed here, right? Never mind. I should have just Boiling Oiled this. Oh, we'll just Boiling Oil him. Maybe I'm just a genius, huh? I forgot that because he's got 2, it's going to play for spells as well. That's me being a bit of a noob. But luckily he's a bit of a noob as well. That play on Saul was pretty poor. See if we get away with this. Obviously, I've just not really got that many ways. Yeah, maybe kick. I think I was wrong to kick the Archer. I think the Archer was kind of good here. I think I was supposed to kick one of these. So here's the Frightener as well. Man, this guy's not playing very well, huh? I guess I'm adding this when it's at 9 strength. To get a rev. I mean, it could be Philippa, but I feel a bit bad on it. I think I need to keep Philippa for... it's kind of a weird one, huh? I guess I'm trissing and hitting this down.
How can I help?
For my rev. Okay, so it's Adda next on the 9. So we're not going to get any bleeding value, unfortunately.
You got a sea beast swimming in them breaches.
And I think we just go for the Philippa and hope for good RNG here. Okay, so that's pretty unfortunate, but I can get it with a Forbidden Magic. And this is the big moment, right, when the Forbidden Magic you already know is going to land in this back row. But I think you can see I was wrong to keep these 2 Forbidden Magics in my hand. That was a misplay from myself. Are you ready for the front row? Nope, never. Never going to happen. He's playing this so weird. Why did he play... I'm so confused. So I think it's actually correct here to Revenant this twice. Please spawn in the front row. Oh my goodness. So now I have to Villain Tretamurth and just hope he doesn't have... I still don't know what this is. We just hope he doesn't have the removal for it. And we should be all good. Oh, it's Timboy. That's quite a lot of damage, huh? That is quite a lot of damage. Old matey comes back. So... does it make a difference what I hit here? I think I'm just supposed to reset. I guess I reset this because it's a 9-point reset. And then I kill this. This is a bigger reset, right? And this is the tallest unit. Let's go. So Villain Tretamurph and no Heatwave. Yeah, Zussi, Timboy, you're right. So Timboy obviously very good against us, but we get the dub. So, I mean, overall, I think it's fair to say we might not have won that game if we were using Heatwave.